Excuse me for a second, if I can undo this. Here we go. Okay. So the first slide is just kind of an overview of our power products offered by Hirose, offered in board-to-board configurations, wire-to-board, wire-to-wire, I/O connectors, plug-in, and a service plug. Even there's a one specific product for that, for a manual service disconnect plug. From all of the bubbles that you see on this current chart, you can see there are quite a few power products that Hirose offers. We won't have time to talk about all of these today, but we're going to focus on a couple of the newer release products that we've brought to the market. But this is just kind of a nice overview of all the power products we've got across the bottom. You can see we're ranging from 5 amps up to 300 amps. The bubbles in green are waterproof products, and the ones in blue are not waterproof. So it's kind of a nice overview. It's a nice chart to keep handy. So if you're talking to someone about power products, it gives you some place to start, and then you can do further research based on that. Mm-hmm. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today. Here's a listing of the newer release products. Recently, you have received a Power Products sample kit, and most all of the products listed here are in that sample kit. So we want to spend a little focused time on these particular products. Let's start with the HR41. HR41 is a IP68 power connector, certainly suitable for harsh environments, available in 3 sizes, a 3-position and a 5-position. As mentioned earlier, it's an IP68 water-resistant connector. It has a nice bayonet lock on it, higher lightning surge protection of 15 kilovolts, sequential contact structure for hot swamping, and we'll talk about all these in detail, or a little more detail. Easy field assembly. It has a mechanical structure that prevents loosening of the cable clamp, and it meets safety standards of UL and TUV for European applications. So as we mentioned, it's a product that is IP68 waterproof, lightning surge protected connector, and it's the plastic body really withstands a sunshine weather test of 2,000 hours, so it winds up not only having a lot of structural integrity, but it looks nice. Here's a slide that gives you an idea of some of the dimensional characteristics of the HR41. You can see it comes in 3 versions. There's a plug and a jack, which give you the cable-to-cable capabilities, and then there's also a panel mount receptacle. The 5-position, you can see, is a little bit larger, of course. Comes in a panel mount receptacle and a cable plug, and then there's a waterproof cap for both the receptacle and the plug version. The HR41 has a long creepage distance. I don't know if that term means anything to you, but basically it's if it should withstand a lightning strike, it's the distance that the lightning would have to follow in order to cause a failure. So it's something that kept in mind to help highlight surge protection. I'm sorry, but somebody is, if you can mute yourself, someone has a lot of noise in the background. See if I can find out who it is. Well, it's gone away, so let's leave that go. The next slide, I'm sorry, my computer just froze up again. Let me, let's see what I can do to get out of this. All right, here we go. The next slide here shows the sequential mating structure. So you can see on the 3 position, there's a 2-sequence mating structure. On the 3 position, there is a 3-sequence. So you've got a ground contact established first, then the power, then the 3rd contact is the signal. So once you've established a ground, you bring power to the system, then you can get your signal information through. On the 2 position, there's basically a ground and a signal capabilities. This is an interesting slide. The way the contact was designed, you can see it's in the isometric on the upper right, you can see that there's a initial contact and then there's a contact that's staggered slightly behind it. So if there's an arc generated created by hot swapping, that is mated first, and then that saves the 2nd contact for a good contact. Next is a slide that shows how some of that IP68 waterproofing is achieved. We've got no water intrusion after submerged in 2 meters of water for 14 days. So you can see there are a number of O-rings that are preventing that water intrusion. This slide shows you some of the clamping features. So you can see the shell has a rubber gasket, then a clamp, and then a tightening ring. Once that clamp is securely tightened, we've got a nice sealed waterproof system. And applications for the HR41 are in LED lighting, lighting in harsh environments, robotics, particularly around water, so many industrial applications, outdoor applications like you can see there. Next slide, we're going to look at the HR41A. The 41A is a closely related product to the 41, only it's a smaller plastic power connector. Again, IP68 water resistant, high lightning surge protection, again of 15 kilovolts. It has a snap-in, user-friendly push-on bayonet lock. So basically you push the connector to lock it, and then you use a bayonet to release it. Easy field assembly, and again, UL and TUV approvals. So here are some of the dimensions on the HR41A. You can see the dimension here of 21 millimeters. On the HR41, that dimension would have been 32 millimeters. So you can see it's fairly, pretty substantially smaller. The HR41 is available in a 5-position connector. Again, just like we saw in the HR41, it has a long creepage. This is the walls between the contacts. So as the lightning comes in, it needs to travel down one wall, up another wall to be able to get to the 2nd contact. And that's how we're achieving that 15 kilovolts lightning protection. As mentioned earlier, it's easy mating. So basically, you take the plug and you push it onto the receptacle. That locks it. Then to unmate it, you need to do a 1/4 turn rotation and then pull it apart. So it's easy push-on bayonet unlock structure. Just like you saw in the HR41, the HR41A has a number of gasket points to seal for water intrusion. Again, no water intrusion submerged in 2 meters of water for 14 days. Again, a similar locking system to the HR41A, where you've got the shell, a rubber gasket, a plastic clamp ring, and then a tightening ring. It's a simplified assembly, high cable force retention, and the plastic clamping is a lightweight solution. Here's kind of an overview of the products we're going to talk about moving forward. So we're talking about power. We're going to talk a lot about power products used particularly in energy storage systems or UPS power systems, low voltage switching gear for power distribution. So here's kind of the an overview of the applications for the products in the rest of the presentation today. In these power products, basically, we're talking about how do we connect the systems to a battery storage application. So there are 2 ways of doing it. One is through a front cable connection, which is very common today, and then we've got a plug-in connection as an option. So in that front cable connection, many applications today are simply used with a screwdriver and a lug terminal that screw onto the battery systems, which is not very elegant, difficult for changing out battery systems. So we've got a couple of solutions for that: the EM50, the EM12M, and the PS3C. But in the new system design where we've got a plug-in connection, we've got the PS2, PS3, and PS3F, which we'll talk about today. So let's start with the PS3C. This is a high current, a single position cable connector supporting up to 150 amps for battery storage. It is a right angle, 180 degree reverse mate for flexibility in cabling systems. Right angle saves in space, of course, in the front side of the system. Safety design with finger protection. In other words, if you put your finger in it, you shouldn't be able to touch the contacts, so there's a safety feature there. And it can be color-coded in either red or black, so if you've got multiple connectors on one system, they wind up being color-coded and key-coded as well to prevent mismating. Again, UL and TUV certified. Let's take a look at the receptacle and the plug. Basically, dimensionally, you can see what they look like. It's a relatively small system, space saving within the battery unit. You can see the contact is has multiple contact points connecting to a blade, which gives you a highly reliable contact design. For connecting to the connector, you can see you've got a cable terminated to a screw lug, which can be screwed down. Then you've got a very secure cable connection. No special tooling required, just a simple screwdriver. 180 degree reversible, as we talked about, gives you system flexibility. Over to the right-hand side, you can see different cabling solutions. And as mentioned earlier, it's color-coded, so it comes in black and red with the grooved mating in different locations to prevent mismating. Let's move on to the next connector, which is the EM12. Again, a single position snap-in power connector, suitable up to 90 amps. Quick and secure snap-in lock. Safety design, again, with finger protection. Crimp termination with commercially available crimp tooling. That means you don't need special Hirose tooling to do the crimps. And again, color-coded in red or black to prevent miswiring. Again, TUV and UL certified. Here are a couple of options. On the far left, you see the mated position. Then we've got the receptacle and the plug. So dimensionally, you can see what that looks like. It's a nice, easy push-in snap lock, and then you simply depress the lever on the top of the plug to unmate the connector system. On the receptacle, you've got a crimp termination or crimp lug to the wire, and then screwed on to the receptacle terminal. On the plug side, the plug is a crimp to a terminal, which is then inserted into the plug. Again, available in 2 colors and different keying options to prevent mismating. And here's kind of a slide of some of the applications. We really talked about it in battery storage, but it can also be used in other applications as in power inverters, medical equipment, UPS systems, robotic controllers, some other industrial applications, although the target for the initial design was in battery storage. Now we're going to touch on the PS2 connector. If you remember a slide, a few slides back, we showed front systems, front connection systems, and then we have a rear drawer type plug-in system. So the connectors we've been talking about up till now have all been front side plug-in. Now with the PS2 and further connectors, we're going to be talking about battery storage where you can simply plug into a drawer. So the PS2 is available in 3 different sizes to accommodate 100, 200, and 300 amp applications. The PS2 is a hybrid for power and signal contacts. In the drawing here, I don't know if you can see the 2 large circles in the upper right, which are the power contacts, and then through the center are the signal contacts. We'll get into those details in just another minute. The way the connector is mounted, it allows for plus or minus 2.5 millimeters of float. So if there's some misalignment, the floating feature accommodates that misalignment. It's very reliable crimp contact for the signals. Multiple power contacts, that is, inside of that power contact, you'll see there are multiple contact points. And again, as you saw earlier, there are sequential mating contacts, which detect incomplete mating. Finger protection, of course, is a requirement, and UL will be available. So this slide kind of shows you the application in the battery storage installation. So across the top, you can see a rack is delivered. So we've got this little truck in a red box here. At this point, the system is delivered. Then the batteries are installed. Then there's wiring that occurs, and then it's completed. So the wiring in this late stage is very labor intensive to do in the field, as well as some safety concerns. With the new system using the PS2 connector, basically the connector is assembled into the rack. The wiring is done in a factory environment. Then it's delivered. Simply plug the batteries in, and your system is completed. So the process has reduced field work and improved safety. Then more telling even is the ease of maintenance. So across the top in the conventional system, you have to remove the cables, remove the battery, install the new battery, install new cables, and then you're completed. With our new system, you simply remove the battery, plug a new battery in. Very efficient maintenance system. So here's a slide of the 200 amp version. The 100, of course, will be a little bit smaller. The 300 will be a little bit larger, but this gives you some idea of the size of the connector. You can see we've got the 2 large power contacts, and that bank in the center is where you'll have your signal contacts available. Here's a slide that shows you how those signal contacts are put together in a brick. So it's a crimped wire that's inserted into this brick, and then that brick is snapped into the main connector. The wires are terminated. The power wires, that is, are terminated to the connector with a screw through a power lug. And this shows you a little bit of the misalignment floating feature. So it has a special screw that allows the connector to float on the front panel. So you've got some allowance of 2.5 millimeters in both the X and Y directions. So it supports a easy plug-in connection. This slide shows you in detail part of that multiple contacts in the power connector. So if you take a close look at the blown up picture of the power contact, you can see there are many contact points in a circle. So those multiple contact points enables high current capacity and ensures reliability in harsh environments. This slide is showing you the sequential contacts, mating contacts. So first we've got the power contacts that mate, and then secondly we've got the signal contacts that mate. We're going to touch on the PS3. That was all PS2. Now we're moving on to PS3. PS3 is a similar connector system, but in a different form factor. It's a lower profile version, available in two types. One is a power only, and the second type is a hybrid power and signal, like we just saw in the PS2. The PS3 is rated up to 150 amps. Again, has a floating feature which allows a 2-millimeter float in either direction. It's a slim design, which is really designed to work in a 1U rack. Cable connection is done through a screw, as we saw earlier. Finger protection, of course, bus caps available, and UL and TUV certified. Again, you can see some dimensional sizes of the product. It's a slim design, again, designed specifically for a 1U rack application. This slide shows a power version only. This slide shows two power contacts, and on the left and right, you can see the signal contacts that are available. This is next slide is showing you what the power contacts look like. So we've got multiple contact points that make connection with a blade contact. Again, allows for low profile interconnection, but very secure connection with multiple contact points. High current capability. For the signal contacts, we're using the well-proven Hirose GT8E connector for the signals. GT8E has been used highly in the automotive industry, so it's a well-proven, reliable connector, and readily available because it's used pretty extensively in that application. Two connector types with either 12 position or 16 position options. Again, like the PS2, it has a floating capability. So as you're plugging in the battery into a drawer application, it is able to float plus or minus 2 millimeters in both the X and Y directions. There's a variation of the PS3, which is a PS3F, which is basically for front mounting. It's very similar application of the PS2, but it's specifically designed for a front mount application. Just kind of showing you what it looks like. So we've got applications where we've got power systems, for example, inside of a truck, where you cannot get to the backside to do any interconnection. So it all has to happen from the front. It's really an ideal for batteries installed inside of containers. So if there's an emergency in your neighborhood and power's out for a long time, they might bring in one of these trucks, or it might be used in a concert application where they need power. So power systems can be brought in that way. We're going to touch a little bit here, shift gears. We're moving on to the EM30 MSD. MSD stands for Manual Service Disconnect. Basically, it's a supporting product for the systems we were looking at, but it's a service plug that essentially disconnects the entire system. So for safety reasons, 200 amp capabilities. It has a signal contact with an interlocking switch to detect the mating status to ensure safety. Shock resistant with a bayonet locking system, IP68 water resistant, commercially available terminals, and UL, CSA, and TUV approvals, of course. So basically, what is a service plug? So it interrupts the electrical circuit and protects operators from high voltage shocks during maintenance. So once you disconnect this plug, you'll know that the complete system is shut down. Again, it supports the total sales of either the PS2, PS3, along with other products in that family. Relatively small and lightweight. You can see how it's terminated. This slide gives you a view of what this slide gives you a view of what the power contact looks like. So you can see there are many contact points that was similar to some of the slides we saw earlier for the PS2 connectors. This slide is a little confusing looking, but basically it's showing you that there's more than just the power contact, but there's some signal information in there that that lets the system know that the system is disconnected or it's fully connected, again, for safety reasons. So there's some switching that goes on inside of the connector. And again, waterproof IP68, no water intrusion when submerged in 2 meters of water for 14 days, just like all the others you've seen. Applications, again, the storage battery is really ideal, but we're seeing some need in things like hybrid buses, construction machinery, those types of industrial applications. And the last connector we want to talk about today is a connector that is not released yet. So engineers are always nervous when I make these presentations of this type of thing because they're afraid you're going to go out and sell it, which is our goal, of course, but not for sale yet. But the PS4 connector is a floating bus bar connector. Target is a 250 amp connector system. Where you simply have a bus bar that you can connect into the connector. Mentioned that it was floating, like some of the earlier connectors we saw. It does move 2 millimeters in either the X and Y direction, but once the bus bar is connected to the system, it locks it down, so it's no longer floats. Ideally designed for use in a one-use server, pretty low-profile type connector. And that's it for today. I think I just made it maybe 1 minute under our half-hour allotted time. So I'll open it up. If there's any questions I can help you with, I'll try now. If not, you can always